everybody. Welcome on the multiple-time champion Call of Duty veteran coach for the Dallas Empire, Rambo. Ray, from now on, should I add Warzone weekend winner to your list of accomplishments?
Sounds about right to me. I clearly earned that one with my superior driving skills.
Yep.
I honestly never laughed that much winning money in my life, so it was a great time. It was really kind of letting go of the some of the steam inside, just really laughing. Laughing is good for you, and then just winning money at the same time. It's great.
I was gonna say I don't think I've actually laughed that hard at Call of Duty in a very, very long time. We give props to Big Bertha in that moment.
Yeah.
Give us a little insight here, right? You win $6,000 for a Warzone event. That didn't even really kind of used to be the prize pool for events back in the day.
No, I've told this story, man. I don't know if I told you this story, but my first ever tournament I went to was the Anaheim MLG National Championship in COD 4. The second year they had it. I showed up for a prize. The first place prize was $8,000 for a team of 4 at the time. So $2,000 each was the prize money you were playing for. I paid $930 for my flight because it's from Montreal. And at that point, flying was expensive, and it was like 3 weeks before. And then you count personal expenses and everything else. And I came home with a $1,200 check because I had the gambling tax and California tax on top of that. So yeah, we've come a long way, boys. All right.
Who would have thought, right? Just years later, you'd be winning $6,000 for driving around good old Big Bertha. But hey, like I said, who would have known? Who would have known? But regardless, on topic kind of with prize pools, the largest one in Call of Duty esports history will unfortunately have to be played online. Now, from a coach's perspective, how do you handle your role for a tournament of this magnitude and being in an online environment?
I mean, it's not any different than what we've been doing lately, right? So we've kind of had a chance to. It's not like it's just we've been playing LAN all year and now we're going to play online. It's not terrible. Like honestly, the only really bad part about it is the fact that the practicing situation is not ideal because the CDL servers are like one entity of servers. And then if we want to practice on what we feel like is the spawn system that emulates what we play in CDL, we have to play on 12 hertz servers. And then they provided us GB 60 hertz servers to practice on, but for whatever reason, the spawns feel somewhat different for us and for every team. So some teams decided to just stick to 60 hertz because the weapon play differences, like you can use more ARs and you're not able to kind of run around corners and use the camera effects as much on 60 hertz. So the competing aspect is great, but the practice element of it is not ideal. So we've been doing the best we can to really kind of put us in a place where we can compete at the highest level every tournament week in, week out. And obviously it's not going to be any different moving forward for the rest of the year.
Tell me, is there at all a worry for you, or really just kind of for your team in general, is there at all a worry that this event, in terms of champs, is going to feel kind of too much like the home series? Do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing? What's kind of your thoughts on kind of treating this just kind of like any other event, or what kind of the mindset will be like for champs?
I mean, honestly, it's not any different. Like I mean, obviously the money aspect is something that the players will probably think about, but like the basis of it is we're trying to compete and win a tournament. And like to do that, we need to perform on every map, every situation, every scenario we have within a map. And that's what we can control. It's really, we're just focusing on what we can do and what we can't do. And then like everything else, the results and everything that's tied to our play is really not in our control. So there's really no reason to kind of worry ourselves with that. I feel like we're just trying to prepare ourselves the best we can for a tournament. We'll show up, play the best we can, and whatever happens, happens.
Now, I'm not sure if you saw the player proposals that kind of came out during the announcement from players like Octane and Scraps were kind of presenting these ideas. And I think the one that Scraps kind of presented was probably the most realistic given the circumstances that we're in, which was kind of this idea of spreading out the prize pool across numerous events instead of having champs, or at the least having champs, but maybe cutting down the prize pool and adding it on for next season. What do you kind of make of those proposals given from the players?
I mean, yeah, it's tough. Like I even saw some proposal of like postponing the event, but like when are you really it's not like this COVID stuff's going anywhere for a while, right? So you can't really postpone an event until next year because then assuming the next Call of Duty comes out before the end of the year, let's say that's the case, then I mean you're not going to play an old Call of Duty game when a new game comes out. Sure. Like nobody's really going to be interested or want to play it or really watch it. So there's so many kind of weird scenarios attached to that. I can kind of understand, like if I was a player, I would feel probably this similar way because nobody really that feels that comfortable playing online. There's so many kind of variables that are added with connectivity. Like as much as the CDL is doing a good job of trying to make it as fair as possible, it's never going to be fair. There's always going to be a team at a certain advantage based on their locations and so on and so forth. And it's not like there's been players that have been talking about possibly relocating themselves for the Champs tournament to give themselves like a somewhat of a competitive advantage for where the server is located. But then that exposes you to the virus as well, because you're traveling and all those things that are telling you not to do. And the reason we're having online, then you're doing the same thing. So it's a very weird scenario. And I feel like there's a very little amount of things that are very feasible to do. The price pool thing, sure, but like at the same time, I don't know. Like you still want the kind of pizzazz and aspect that the Champs brings. Like it's still a Call of Duty Championship event. Sure, it's online, but like I'm still going to recognize it as a team who won that event. Like teams are still competing in the same game. We're still playing every day. Like there's nothing really different besides the fact that we're not playing on the perfect playing field, which is the LAN play. But beyond that, nothing's really different in my head.
You know, Ray, I am currently an avid viewer of State of the Empire, and I got to give you some props. I think in your bracket predictions episode, you did manage to get the top 4 teams correct, but one team that did kind of manage to spoil your grand final prediction was the winner of the event, the New York Subliners. What did you like from New York this weekend?
New York's been, in my opinion, New York's been like a top 4, top 5 team for months now. There's just never been able to put it into play in an actual tournament. And they just came out firing this weekend. Some of the changes that happened recently with like the weapon play in the meta is for sure, I'd say, has fallen into their favor in some example. I definitely feel like they probably have some of the stronger ARs and versatile players on their team in the league. And they just really kind of showed this weekend, like they molded to the changes that happened lately very well. And they understood what they needed to accomplish in the map based on that. Their understanding, their coaching staff is really great. Like nothing but props to JP and Bobble. Revan, and those guys know what they're talking about, and it seems like everything's kind of fell into their lap this weekend. It just kind of not fell into their lap, but everything they've been working towards this kind of came to fruition finally for them. They played extremely well. They did everything they needed to do, and they just performed. So it's really props to them on that. And again, like it's not something that's new. Like I've been expecting this for probably 2 or 3 events now for them to really kind of come out firing. They almost won one. Was it 2 months ago, or was it a month ago, or whatever? They almost won one. They came second or third, something like that. But yeah, no, it's nice to see this team kind of come on top, because there's a lot of good teams in this league, but I feel like they're one of the better ones that just haven't performed that well this year. So it's nice to see that.
I will say one thing that I was really impressed kind of with them was kind of an individual player in particular. And this was kind of not, I wouldn't say swept underneath the rug, because we saw a number of different guys from New York really kind of start to put on a performance. But I was really impressed by the young guy. I was impressed by Mac's transition to the M4. And not only him, but we saw a number of different SMG players kind of transfer to kind of the AR role, right? Mac with the Subliners. We saw Prestini do it with Chicago. Asim with Minnesota, Simp from Atlanta, Scraps from London. I mean, a number of different guys kind of transition from, a lot of them from kind of a hardcore SMG role now to rocking with the M4. And based on what could be a 3 M4 meta, who do you think could be the 3rd M4 for the Dallas Empire?
Can't share you the secrets, man. Like, come on, what are you trying?
At least tell me how many conversations.
Like, aren't you in my office?
Sorry. How many conversations have there been about who that could be?
I mean, we saw the changes, and when we started scrimming with the changes, like we've been playing with that mentality for probably a week or so. So, like we have our ideas of what needs to happen on certain maps and situations where we need to adapt, but we might have our own twist on certain things. And the beauty of it is, like, I mean, we have back-to-back weekends, and we play, like, our pool, I'd say, is probably one of the weaker pools we've had all year. Not saying that you have to overlook any team. Like Paris could easily be a very strong team, and then New York just won last weekend, and then LAG is also a team that's shown flourish. So like, I'm not saying this is like a free breeze, but like from a standpoint of like where we can maybe afford to kind of test out and not necessarily be on point right away, it might help us really kind of grow and understand where we stand on this situation, this kind of play for the remainder of the year. So it's exciting. I feel like we have very strong, versatile players. I'm not worried about it at all. I think it's just a matter for us to really kind of grasp and understand what differences it's going to make on our routing and like everything else that kind of goes along with what weapons you use in the match.
No, I know. I think it's kind of fair to say a lot of teams were caught off guard, I would say, by how many M4s that we ended up seeing. I think there were a few teams that kind of made like mid-series or kind of after a series kind of started to transition from not just 2 M4s into 3 M4s. I know you kind of hit on it a little bit, but kind of your thoughts just in general from seeing 3 M4s. Is this new meta a positive one for the Empire moving forward?
Everything's positive for us, man. We're just the best. Yeah,
Is
we,
that
we
right?
adapt. Like, I'm not worried about it. Like, honestly, like a lot of people would be in a situation, be like, yeah, like, I mean, we've been playing good for like a couple of months now. Sure, we lost our last two events, but we lost really close games to the two eventual champs of the tournament semis. So for us, it's not like, oh my God, like we gotta rewrite the book. Like, no, we just made small mistakes here and there that we're trying to solve, just like the rest of the year. Ever since I joined the team, it's really just about trying to make sure we're prepared to the best of our ability. And part of that preparation is really understanding where we need to stand on certain situations and the weapon play, for example, what you're describing. I'm really trying to get to. It does seem like 60 hertz and 3 ARs seem like a really kind of a good combination because of the fact that your positional advantage is flourished even more so than
Mm-hmm.
before.
Sure.
And because of the weakness in the SMGs right now, you can't really like challenge an AR from across the map like you could before. So having that extra AR can help very much so if you're holding positions, but at the same time, breaking positions can be more difficult because your movement and your ability to kind of process and jump in a close quarter in the air is not as great. So it's really for us, it's really trying to figure out what works and what doesn't as fast as we can, so we can come in and have our own twist on everything we saw this weekend going into the next event.
Now the Mutineers currently considered kind of the number one team in the world based off of power rankings. We didn't get a chance to watch them either this weekend. Given that roster, given that team, the makeup of the group that they've got going, how do you think that they'll react to the meta change?
I mean, they were Awakening's been using. He's been basically using almost more in forward than SMG.
Mm-hmm.
The last two events they won, so they were almost like on top of the meta before the meta even change happened. They felt like certain situations, more so than others, required more M4s, and their team revolves around very much like they're like anchoring, not anchoring in the spawn sense, but anchoring in where their areas are more like turrets, where they cover kind of large parts of the map and really kind of give room for the SMGs to play well. And it's worked out for them because they've all played amazing, and it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of pushes through now because most teams are going to be doing what they were doing. So it's interesting to see. We'll see what goes. I don't really have much predictions for what they're going to do. I would assume they probably do the expected and just run 3 ARs more often than not.
Sure. Yeah. I will say, I heard a lot of people kind of talking on Florida as if this would really hurt them, and I kind of feel as if I'm kind of on the other side of the coin, if you will, kind of much like you said. I feel like you got guys like Awakening who've already been the flex. Pharaoh feels confident with the M4, which we know, and Skies has been absolutely fantastic. And so I think it's just kind of a matter of kind of seeing, once pen meets paper. But I'm interested to see how Florida does, much like Dallas. But quickly, I got to ask you one last thing about the New York home series. As a coach, right, that's faced off against these rosters many times and knows them well, this particular series was supposed to be the biggest regular season match of the year. What was your impression for the long-awaited Huntsman versus FaZe match?
FaZe just did not come to play for whatever reason. FaZe kind of been like that lately, honestly. We scrimed Chicago for the first couple of times in months. Last 2 weeks, and they've been looking pretty good. Honestly, they seem to have a good grasp on what they're trying to accomplish on the map. I'm sure Sander Dare has been kind of helping them preach and helping them really get on the same page. And it seems like they have they're in a good place mentally. What they're really trying to accomplish when they play. So FaZe has been kind of on and off, and honestly, it feels like they've been like that for like a month or two now. Where like I'm kind of not grasping, but I'm judging this based off scrims, but like we'll play them, and one day we just run the floor with them, and the next day they're a full different team and they're back to where they were before. So it's just really kind of, I don't know exactly what's going on there. If the mentality, what they're trying to accomplish, is not the same, and they might have some disagreements and whatnot. So it's hard to tell because FaZe looked pretty good to start the event, and then they lost to Toronto and then came back. So they just obviously based on the results didn't really look on top of their game this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of change that up for the last event and then the champs going in the last end of the year.
Ray, do coaches get a ring if they win champs?
I flipping beat better.
I hope to see it. I was curious. I saw it on your, I think it was on State of the Empire. I think you had mentioned like kind of at the end the idea of coaches getting rings. I actually don't even know. Like, have coaches got rings in the past?
No, but coaches never really been officialized as they are now.
True.
Like I mean, if you look at like professional franchising sports like baseball, and basically everyone in the organization gets a ring. So I better damn get a ring, all right? I've been waiting a while for that one.
I agree. I think it would definitely make sense given the history, and who knows, Ray, you may, like I said, finally get that ring that you've been searching for. And definitely,
Disclaimer: we have to win it first.
oh, that's true. It's true. You have to win first. But hey, regardless, we'll see what happens. But that is Ramboray, multiple-time champion, coach for the Dallas Empire, Warzone weekend winner. Ray, it's always great to chat with you, and thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us.
Of course, as always, Lando. Have a good one.